Hello YouTube, and welcome to this video on how to interpret a Celtic cross. We're going to be using this sample spread. This is actually, I'm going to go through my way of interpreting a Celtic cross. So obviously this is just the way I do things. Hopefully it can provide some inspiration or insight for those that are maybe struggling with interpreting this spread, or even if you're just bored of the way you interpret it, or want some further insights. Hopefully this will be helpful for that too. This was a spread in relation to a question that someone asked, and the question was that their life had gone through a few ups and downs at the present time, and they just wanted to know where they, or to have some clarification on where they were at the present time, and where their life was going, and what they could do really to gain some clarity about moving forward. I think one of the things that with these spreads to realise is that all the cards are actually connected. We can think of the Celtic cross as like a grid work of energy where all 10 cards are connected. So all cards really are interrelated. As we deal the pack, there is an energy that starts with the first card, with the energy coming into the spread, and we can think of, and that is the ruin card here, and the energy in a sense goes out with the final outcome with the 10th card here. So we've got energy in, energy out, and we've got a network of interconnected energies that pull together and make the spread what it is. It's rather like having a natal chart done, where all the planets are interrelated with the angles and aspects and all that various criteria, and we've got the same here. But there are certain relationships that perhaps need to be studied more than others, and I'll go through that as we go on with this tutorial. So with the introduction over, I can say that you can skip to any part of the video by looking in the description box below. There'll be a link to click on to each section of the video, because with this being a tutorial, an explain type of video, it will be fairly long. Alright, see you in the next section. Okay, this section looks at what I would look at in this spread in the first 10, 20, 30 seconds, something like that, of the spread being dealt. So the first thing I would notice would be the first card here, which is the ruin card, which is this one here. So the client had said that they'd had a few ups and downs recently. The ruin card is quite a strong card. It's in a suit of swords, so it particularly pertains to thoughts, what's going on inside your head. So maybe the client is dampening down actually the severity of what's been going on. That's something that I would have in my mind at the start. And this is the first card, and it's the hub through which the rest of the spread revolves around, in a sense, because it's where the client is at the moment. And so we have to keep relating back to the central theme, which is this one. It's, as I say, it's the hub through which the other cards revolve, so we have to bear that in mind. And it's also where the energy comes first into the spread there. That's the starting point. I also note the end point here, which is the Three of Swords. Again, that's covered by an extra card that I'd dealt there. So again, the Three of Swords, something to note in the beginning, that the this is also a difficult card. So we've got a spread where we've got a difficult beginning and a difficult ending, and also these two cards are in the same suit of swords. And at this stage I'm thinking, because this is a difficult ending card, that we're probably going to have to deal some more cards so we can shed more light on how to resolve the situation, if it isn't particularly resolved through looking at the rest of the cards in the spread. So those are two things that I'll look out for at the beginning. Another thing that I will look out for is if any particular card stands out for me at this time in the spread. And for me it was the Empress here in the 8th position. And indeed that's the only major arcana in this spread. The Empress is a card of love, support, being in harmony with the environment in this particular position, and it stood out for me because it's a particularly positive card in a spread that is otherwise fairly difficult. Again, another thing I look for in this very early stages of dealing the spread is the overall colour of the spread. Now the overall colour of this spread is actually pretty light. You've not really got that many dark cards, apart from here and here. So normally you would think, oh, it's going to be a bright spread, but in fact that, as we've quickly noted, isn't the case. Those are the things that I look out for at the beginning. The first card, the last card, is it going to be an easy or difficult spread, and are there any particular cards that stand out, and just the overall essence of the spread. Okay, the next phase, if you like, is looking a little bit more closely at the frequency and distribution of the card types. So we've got 3 card types in the tarot deck. One is one particular type is the major arcana, which I said we've just got the Empress here. Now the major arcana in relation to a tarot reading, they seem to represent more significant life events, karmic events, which are more difficult to work through, or at least they're more difficult to change, because they represent, if you want to go back and look at the soul of the individual, then they may be closely related to soul lessons which need to be experienced. The good point in terms of this spread is that this major arcana card is the Empress, which is a very positive card. We've also got minor arcana here. Minor arcana in this spread are more difficult, but they represent more to do with our everyday life events, more random life events. If we look at a soul incarnating, then there's going to be specific life events like the major arcana, but there's also going to be like wild cards where you've got the free will of the individual. These are the day-to-day life events which, although very relevant and important, they can be manipulated a little bit more than the major arcana. So look at how many minor arcana are in the spread and what type of energy they contain. And the minor arcana that we've got here, we've got in position 1, 2, in position 5 here with the 8 of Wands, and then further on at the end we've got the 3 and 4 of Swords. Noted that the extra card is in the Suit of Swords as well. And the final type of card we've got are the court cards. Now we've got a lot of court cards in this particular spread. We've got 4 out of 10, that's nearly half of the cards in this spread of court cards. And if any of you have seen my videos on the court cards, you'll know that they are not easy. They can represent either people or aspects, facets of the person's personality. But nevertheless, because each court card rules over 3 particular minor arcana cards, they are complex and a mixture of energies. So again, this is an extra layer of difficulty in interpreting this spread. So it's a good spread to use as a tutorial because it gives us lots to have to work through. So that's probably the next stage that I look at when I'm assessing a spread. And all of these, this section and the previous sections have happened within the first 30 seconds or something like that. Okay, the next section is going to be a long section because that is a really important section that goes through the relationships between the cards in the spread, and I'm going to look at 7 different types of relationships that I find are important in the Celtic cross spread. That's 7 different types of relationships, so we'll look at this section next. Okay, the first relationship we're going to look at is these cards 1 and 2. The first card here, the Ruin card, is the client's present situation, and the second card is the card that's crossing it, and we'll have a look at the meaning of that in relation to this card as well. So with the Ten of Swords being covered, we'll uncover it, and essentially we have a central sword here which is broken because it's been attacked by these other swords. You've got the chaos in the background here, but you have got this glowing yellow light in the background shining through, which is our way out. So there's always a way out in these things. We have, relating back to the question, obviously she indicated that there were some difficulties at the present time, and this is very much a reflection of that. The swords do indicate that it's more the residual impact of things could be more psychological than actual physical things at the moment. It could have related to a previous loss of a relationship or a job loss, something quite traumatic in where your life has essentially crumbled in that particular sphere. But the swords do indicate that it's very much a residual effect in the mind, and the fact that the end card was a sword as well sort of reinforces this. We've got the the 9 of discs, which is one of my favourite cards, the game card crossing it. These are conflicting factors, the number 2 card, and represent the immediate challenge to the problem. And if it's the one thing that is resolved, could make the situation much easier. The game card is related to the Ruin card in this situation, and the game card stands for opportunities, growth, wealth. It is in a suit of discs, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that you're rich, but that you are contented. So there is a certain wealth to your life because of that contentment and balance. You can see you've got these symmetries here, so there's definitely a balance in this card. So at the moment, this card really, I would say, is reminding the person that there is still a lot to work for. It's like a reminder that she can be contented and gain those things back that she's lost, but perhaps her thoughts and the after effects of what's happened to her are stopping her from moving on with her life. And to me, that's the main way that these two are related. So immediately we've got a negative card to start with. We can introduce something positive here, because this is a positive card, even though it's like in a conflicting thing. All it's saying is that there are opportunities there, and that she can have this harmony and wealth back in her life, but she needs to stop herself from preventing these opportunities from happening. Okay, that's relationship 1. Okay, for this next section we're going to look at what I call the vertical row here, and with the vertical row we have 3 cards. If we ignore the crossing card here, we will have the 8 of Wands, the 10 of Swords, which we've already looked at, and the Prince of Cups. So what do these positions represent? Well, the Prince of Cups represents our unconscious patterns and influences, the thoughts and feelings that we might not be particularly aware of, that are underneath. They're in our subconscious, we haven't exactly connected with them yet. So for people that are not particularly intuitive, they may have a fair bit in this particular section of the spread, and it will be something that's probably quite new to them if you're getting them to explore their subconscious. On the top here we've got the Eight of Wands, and that's to do with the client's hopes and goals for the future. So that's the conscious energy patterns that they're putting energy into, that is directed towards their future goals, and we will look at the connection between this and the outcome later on. And obviously we've got the present situation here. So we'll look at this section card by card. If we look at the Eight of Wands here, what does that represent in the client's hopes and goals? Well, as you can see here, we've got a shape with the wands firing out at all angles. You've got Mars in Sagittarius there, with the rainbow of colours over the top. So this is all about breaking out of limits and restrictions and moving forwards, creating new things. If you want the notes for any of these, they're on my website, or if you want the notes for this whole tutorial, that's in the description box below. So it's implying that she wants to blow away the cobwebs, create something new and successful and worthwhile. Spiritually, in somebody's life, this is like breaking out of old patterns, old ways of thinking, old ways of meditating and seeing, or whatever your spiritual practice is, and seeing things from a different light. So the energy in this card is very positive and constructive. As I say, it's going out at the various different angles of the shape here, so it's actually making something which is constructive and worthwhile. Sorry, you've got Mercury in Sagittarius here. Did I say Mars? Right. We've got Mercury in Sagittarius, which is all to do about communication. So again, this idea of communication, and the card 1, which was the Ruin card, again, that's to do with thoughts and communicating, so this does relate back to that way. We'll look at the subconscious things now. Prince of Cups, our first court card that we come across. This card represents someone who does have a lot of sensitivity and emotional rapport, because they've experienced a fair bit of life. But this can often be hidden. It's not normally on the surface of things. There's a Scorpio element to this card with the eagle here. Scorpio is always hiding emotions and feelings. So there is this element to the client not being able to perhaps share things. There's also a tendency to be self-obsessed with this particular character. So this would indicate that the client can sometimes get too wrapped up in their own world. So it hints that for her life to prosper, which was what the gain card was all about, she has to sort of let go a little bit of this self-obsession and a tendency to sort of hide emotions, and yet she needs to bring these to the fore to be more empathic to others, to be able to move forward positively, rather than the Ruin card seems to imply more of an inward sort of conflict that's not been resolved. And it's the same with the Prince of Cups. That's a lot going on subconsciously here, although on the surface, you know, it may all seem very nice and bright. There's a lot to resolve in the Prince of Cups. And there's also an inner volatility with this character as well. So again, that I would relate back to the first card, and relate that volatility back to the person having unresolved intellectual, mental sort of issues, really. The hopes and the swiftness card again is a good card which lifts the client out of, so at least her sort of outlook is positive. Again, apologies for getting the astrology wrong with that. Okay, that sums up the vertical row. Next section we will look at this horizontal row here. So in the horizontal row we've got the Princess of Wands, and she represents the client's immediate past. We've got the Ruin card where they centre around. I did say, you know, it all revolves around this central card here, and we've got the Five of Discs as well. So with that particular row, we've got 3 cards here. Right, we'll have a look at the recent past. So these are events which have occurred which are influencing the current situation here. They're not independent. So we'll have a look at the Princess of Wands. So we've got the Princess of Wands here with dragging a tiger by the tail in this flame there. So there's a lot of energy in this card. We've got the sun disc here. And what does she represent in this position? Well, she's really got a head-on approach to life, confronting and overcoming fears. She's like got a full immersion in life, really. Sometimes though she doesn't consider all the consequences of her actions, and these actions can sometimes border on recklessness. So with this in mind, considering that the present card was the Ten of Swords, you would seem to indicate that perhaps something has gone astray a little bit in the client's past, that has been maybe a little bit reckless, that has contributed to the situation in hand. So the ones are always up to do with where the client's energies are directed, where she puts her energy into things. So the Princess of Wands is not a negative card. She just has to channel the energies into productive things. And if we go to the Five of Discs, the Five of Discs is in the position of card 6, which is the immediate future, and this is the Worry card. This is in the suit of discs, so it can relate to material, practical things that's happening in the client's life. And these things can, because it's worries, anxiety, which can be an intellectual thing as well, something within the mind. So again, it does relate back to the Ten of Swords there. When dealing with this spread, obviously in the client's immediate future, this was another difficult card. So at this point in the spread, you would obviously want to try and iron out some of the negativity in this card, because it's not, you could say that the anxiety that she's going to have, or worries over the future, will keep her in that locked in that position of card 1. And as a difficult card, we can see ahead that this is going to be a possible problem for her. We'll have a look at the astrology later, but here the astrology here is Mercury, which is fast communication, that sort of thing. It's bogged down in Taurus, which is a slow and predictable, steady, stable sign. So it's again a problem of communication here, either with others or the communication within herself. So Mercury is, again, this is why, you know, I do like to know the different astrological attributions of these cards, because you do get patterns which you wouldn't otherwise see. So in summary, for this particular row, to sum up in one sentence, we could say that the client's usual zest for life and fearlessness in the Princess of Wands has maybe resulted in her being a little bit reckless, perhaps, or maybe even taking too many chances. It could be business-wise or whatever, and it's led to this particular trauma in the present situation. And there's a possibility that this could leave her with anxieties in the future as well. So we'll look at some other relationships now to try and see a constructive way out of this particular energy pattern. Okay, quick relationship here. Does subconscious motivators, patterns, and the past, what bearing do they have on the future? I've used this because this is something that the client's perhaps not aware of, and it might be hindering. So if we tease those out, we've got the Princess of Wands, where we can say that the client has perhaps acted in ways that are not always in her best interests, and this has really tripped her up in the present with the Ten of Swords. The Prince of Cups comes in because the Prince of Cups again is to do with being emotionally disconnected from others, a little bit, and a tendency to be like self-obsessed. Again, it's this inward energy, and the worry card again is an inward energy. So although she can be very outgoing here, this is why looking at particular cards on their own doesn't really give you a true picture of things, because we see how the various different facets of these cards play out. And let's say you've got the Prince of Cups here, which there can be like an inner volatility, does relate well to others, but can often be quite aloof and hide things with an inner volatility. And you've got the Aries heads here indicating Aries here, so again that can be a volatility to do with this card as well. Again, all this is directed inwards, and you've got the worry here, so we need to start sort of changing the way this client thinks about themselves and expresses themselves in their world, to avoid things like worry, to allow these energies to come to the fore, and so she can communicate better as well, because Mercury keeps popping up in this thread. So communication with herself and with others, and being emotionally quite open will be good things to work on. Another one to work on in this particular section would be the how do the hopes and goals relate to the immediate future. That's quite important. Can we give the client some feedback as to how easily these hopes are going to be realised? And again, we've got the worry card here, so at this stage I would be looking at focusing on the positive aspect of this situation, and that is that the client, with the rainbow here and the positivity of this particular card, does have in the back of their mind a positive outlook. They've got a lot of energy that they can use, but this energy needs to be directed in an appropriate way. So they need to be very clear on what their actions are going to be and what their goals are going to be and how to achieve them. Because if they set off as the Princess of Wands again on this wonderful journey, then it may be that would lead to more worry, that she's going to end up back in the same situation as what she is now. So we'll now move on to the next section and look at the staff, the vertical staff section of the Celtic cross. So we're getting on the home straight now of this reading, and we're looking at the this staff section of the cross. This relationship will look at the internal factors, and in card position 7, and external factors of the client. So we have the Prince of Wands and the Empress respectively. These two are very positive cards, which gives us some respite from the rather difficult cards that we've come across so far. Prince of Wands in card position 7. This is to do with the client's approach, how she sees herself in the current situation, or we also need to assess this particular position as having a bearing on the situation in hand. So the Prince of Wands is a very encouraging card, because the present situation was quite a difficult one, the Ten of Swords. This card really brings to the surface the client's true colours, which are positive, energetic and outgoing. Quite a strong moral balance to this card as well, normally. It represents someone with a warm disposition and sense of humour. It's obviously related to the Princess of Wands in the past, but it has more stability than the Princess. So this is how the client normally is. Again, going back to the spread, you've got these two which are obviously related. So obviously there's something happened in the client's past that where they've gone off track and become a little too reckless. But you know, they normally have quite a positive outlook, and this is also reflected in the outlook card here, the hopes and goals, which is a positive card. So something's obviously, you know, flung a spanner in the works and got them off kilter. Environment here, and the Empress card, which, as I said, was a card that stood out for me. So the Empress is all to do with love, nurturing, fertility. So this card position, the external influences, highlights people, energies or events that may affect the outcome, which is card position 10. So this is someone who's very much in tune with their environment. So ultimately these two cards together show that the client has lots of energy and creativity in the Prince of Wands. It was lost a little bit in the Princess of Wands in the past, and so at this time she probably needs some support and nourishment from her environment. So environment is going to be particularly important to this client, and that is to could be due to anything to do with making sure that her home, her friendships are supporting her at this present time, or her relationship. That's going to be vital, because normally she has a lot of energy and that's being put aside due to the difficulties. So environment is going to play a very important part in helping someone over this particular stage. Final relationship we're going to look at is the hopes and goals here, position 5, and the 10th position here, which is the outcome, which is a sorrow card. Hopes and goals we've already looked at. So how is that creativity to move on, make something new? How is that to do? How does that relate to the Three of Swords? Well, as I alluded to at the beginning, the Three of Swords is to do with sorrow. We see the petals of the rose damaged by the three swords, and we've got all this darkness in the background. The sorrow is very heavy. You've got a heavy planet here, which is Saturn, slow moving, all to do with major life lessons. So we don't want to leave the client looking at a future of sorrow, which is why I drew the extra card, which was the truce card. Because at the moment, you can, if she continues the way she is, doesn't resolve her inner conflicts here, or change of recklessness, then it can lead on to increased anxiety, which can follow on to sorrow there. the truce card, which we can barely see, is you've essentially got the green cross with the swords there, the rose in the middle, and you've got lots of chaos in the background, but there is a sense of a truce, some time out. Truce isn't the same as having an inner peace. It's almost like making a deal with yourself that you're not going to for instance stay with negative thoughts, but just going to put them aside and move on and deal with them as and when you are able to. So it was important to draw an extra card here. So truce, not so much to do with the resolution of internal conflict, as I say, making an understanding of yourself that you won't actively hold yourself back. It implies a period of rest and recuperation. So rather than, there's a tendency here to perhaps rush into things, because there's lots of energy in this Eight of Wands there. You've got Mercury fast communicating, Sagittarius, again a fast moving sort of sign there. You've got there, yeah, Sagittarius is a fire sign. So this truce card here would tend to indicate that she really needs to take time out at this stage before moving on and creating something new, and take some time to see how she got herself in this position, and try and avoid those actions that maybe have caused this. It's a time for healing rifts in friendship, family and things like that as well. That's what truce is about as well. And it's taking time out from this energy here. Right, in the next section we'll look at the card that we've missed, which is the guidance and warning card. The guidance and warning card is another factor in the equation. Again, because of the purposes of tutorial, I'm evaluating this separately, but in a reading all of these would sort of blend in. So, but for the sort of teaching purposes, I've had to sort of tease these sections out. So the guidance and warning, this position number 9 is factors that may need special attention from the client when assessing their sort of future actions. It's something that would be very useful, really, to prevent, in this case, the client ending up experiencing more sorrow. And this brings in a whole different quality, because the Princess of Cups is a very gentle and intuitive person. They're quite romantic. They like harmony in their world because they don't deal with stress very well. So there is a certain fragility about the Princess of Cups. She can be very dreamlike, very idealistic as well. So in the guidance of warning in this particular spread, I would say there's a lot of emphasis on the swords, a lot of conflicts there, which can sabotage things. So it's important to be in touch with, for the client to be in touch with their emotions. This links in with many other cards, because if we look at the spread again, so you've got being emotionally open here, and you've got a closeness here in the subconscious things there. So it's beckoning for this Prince of Cups to be in touch with their emotions there. So also important, it relates to this card here, the Empress, and to do with nurturing and love and that sort of thing. And with regards to the rune here, the fact that she's got an inner fragility means that she really needs to protect that, and stop this sense of devastation happening in the ruin card, because a lot of swords about, and so there's a lot of things happening in her mind. So in a sense, both of these two together sort of indicating that they need to feel inwardly and outwardly nourished to prevent this the sort of mind from them being self-obsessed and getting wrapped up in negative cycles of thought. So that's how I would say that card actually links in. We'll next have a look at a final card which I sometimes do, which is called the Deep card. The Deep card is, well, I'll explain that in the next section. The Deep card I first got from someone on YouTube, and there's a link to him in the description box under Deep card, Polyphonic Tarot. This video might not be up. I know I've got it on my laptop, but I tried to look for it and it had gone. But I will try and find that link, and if it isn't in the description box below, then he has pulled it down. The Deep card is the when you deal the 10 cards for the Celtic cross from the top of the deck, the Deep card is the card on the very bottom of the deck. So there is implication of something subconscious going on here, because it's deep, it's hidden, it's right at the very bottom. So it's those issues which are far-reaching into the client's past, which may help to understand the client's position in the present. It does differ from the subconscious here, and in that I feel, although it wasn't mentioned in the video, that there is more of a karmic thing here going on in the Deep card. It's further in the past. It's something which is long-standing, so it's not like an immediate thing that's been present just in the immediate present and immediate past. It's actually something that's been a long-standing thing, and I use this card sometimes to unravel a spread if it needs more interpretation. And lo and behold, we have another court card, which is the Prince of Swords, yet another sword. So the Prince of Swords, you've got someone in a chariot here, trying with the sword to cut some ties to certain thoughts here that are not really useful. So the Prince of Swords doesn't always put his energies into productive things. It can be a warning for the client to use her resources wisely and to cut out that which is not serving her. This person is someone who can again be emotionally quite cold, difficult to get to know, and that does tie in with the Prince of Cups being in the subconscious position whereby things are hidden. So this very much reinforced those things that were in the spread, and that did actually help with regards to I think reinforcing the fact that she sort of tends to suppress things, but she also needs to cut away that which is not serving her, and it implies there are certain things in her life at the moment that are not serving her at the moment. But this geometrical shape here does seem to indicate that there is something useful to construct, which is what we've got here. Okay, on to the final stretch. We'll talk about elements and astrology. Astrology first. We're going to be really quick because of time. The minor arcana here, I've got the planet and star sign written as a glyph on each of the minor arcanas from 2 to 10, and this applies in the Rider-Waite deck the same, only the glyphs are not there. So here, for instance, in the Worry card we have Mercury in Taurus. So going through the whole of the spread, the two things that stand out are that only Mercury and Libra are repeated. Mercury is the need to be clear about communication, whether that's an internal or external thing. you know, in this case it's both. We've definitely seen a case for both. From what we've talked about, Libra is obviously finding that balance in life which was lost way back here, and to a certain extent here, and to a certain extent to the Deep card, which was the Prince of Swords. But you know, you can, in your own time, you can go through the various different ones and see how they, but I just look for a theme. Is it repeated? Those two were, and I've summarized them there. With regards to the elements, I've got a detailed description of the elements in the notes that accompany this particular tutorial. A fire basically represents, which is the wands, represents where the querent is putting their energy. Water is to do with their feelings, emotionals, things, subconscious things. Air cards, the swords, that are to do with the mind and separation, because the mind divides. And the discs are to do with earth. So in her spread we have 3 fire cards, 2 water cards, 3 air cards, and 2 earth cards. So they're pretty fairly balanced like that. Having said that, the air cards were particularly difficult, and that's where we put our concentration on in the interpretation. So, as a final summary of this particular reading, so we will go to the very final section, and I will summarise everything up. Okay, the final section, we'll just interlink things in a summary fashion. So I'll start here, and we can just say that the client's usual outgoing nature, their positivity, their energy, and indeed their moral character has taken a bit of a blow in the Ruin card here, which is quite a dramatic card. It means this fairly major life event has gone on. That could be the fact that maybe she's acted a little bit immaturely, and represented by the princess there, that the actions, although have been full of enthusiasm, have not really been directed into the in the right things. This was supported again by the Deep card here, where he's now trying to cut ties with things that is not serving him there. And this does and can have a tendency to lead on to worry in the future, which is interlinked with the present there, because worry is something that seeps through. It's an emotional thing, even though it's in a suit of discs. Worry tends to be an emotional and mental, have an emotional and mental connection there. The positive, and again that leads, it's very heavy energy, which leads onto this darkness in sorrow, which again can just permeate somebody's life and stay with them. So they need to take time out in the Four of Swords there, have some rest, recuperation, and make sure that this energy that they want to put into useful things is not spent unwisely, going back to the behaviour of the past. They need to make sure that at this particular time, when they've had a trauma, that the inner and outer environments are kept positive. So they need to keep relating back to their positivity, but perhaps unravel, to emotionally open up, so that volatility is dissipated, really, so that they can express themselves far better. Because in the Princess of Cups here, you've got someone who is very gentle and very sensitive, but with an underlying fragility. So we do not want them traumatized again. If they've got an underlying fragility there, it needs to be protected, and that's done through their outer environment here, love, support and nurturing relationships, and getting back to their true self there. Okay, I think that is it. So thanks for bearing with me. I'm not going to do another tutorial this long. This was just to explore my method. So take care of yourselves. If you've got any questions, just drop them in the box below, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Alright, take care. I think next is the Chariot, which is card 7, which finishes the first line of 7 of the tarot, and after that I will be taking a break from tarot. Alright, take care, bye for now.